So, this is the worst thing I've seen in some time. You know all that hate that this movie's getting? Like all that 6% on Rotten Tomatoes, 9 on Metacritic, all that stuff. If you think that's overblown, trust me, that's too nice for this movie. This movie is an abomination. It needs to go die in a hole right now. No exaggeration, none of that. Just this movie can just go kill itself. Really. Now, it may be a weird thing for me to say because I've never said anything like this before on this channel, and because this just looks like a stupid run-of-the-mill kids movie, but it's worse than that. It's more than just a stupid kids movie. This movie stands for everything that is wrong with entertainment, as well as being communist propaganda, but I'll get to that. So, this movie was reviled from the very moment that Sony Pictures announced that they were going to make this heaping pile of festering trash. And it's about this emoji, I hate this already, named Gene, who's supposed to be a meh emoji, but oh no! He's not a meh emoji! He can make more faces! Oh no! And the big bad establishment tells him that he has to be one emotion, but he can't do that because he can be every emotion other than the one he's supposed to be. Oh no! So he enlists the help of a former favorite emoji that's a giant hand with a bandage on it for some reason. Then they break out of the phone and then go over to the other apps, and then they explore that. And then find out that there are actually different worlds in there. And then they meet this goth girl emoji who is trying to break free and something and blah 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 blah. Don't know, it doesn't really explain. And then they come to terms with who they really are. This thing is one of the worst things I have ever seen. This is right up there with the Drawn Together movie or Little Monsters, as in movies that just fill me with so much rage. A couple of my friends took me to go see this movie for an early birthday thing, because my birthday's today, yay, and I get to talk about this. So they took me to go see it yesterday, and I didn't want to see it, because I knew this would be terrible. I really, really did. And I was scared to see this because I've heard all the bad things about it. But I kind of looked on the positive side because they convinced me this would be one of those movies that's, so bad it's good. It's like Robot Monster or Plan 9 or The Room. It's going to be one of those movies. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and we're just going to laugh and have a great time. We didn't. Like 10 minutes in, we realized this was not one of those movies. If I had $1 for every time one of the three of us, especially me, said something like, I'd rather be hit by a truck, I wish I was dead, or I'd rather drink a bucket of paint right now, I could have rented out the whole theater. Not like I would have wanted to, but I could have. This is going to involve a lot of spoilers, but to be fair, who really cares, right? Right? First of all, the casting is abysmal. T.J. Miller was doing so well. He was in the Mucinex stuff. He was in Gravity Falls. He was in Deadpool. But now he's in the emoji festering lump of cancer. Oh, jeez. And then there's I don't know his name, but there's the guy who voices the hand. What's he doing here? He's a good actor. He shouldn't be here. He really shouldn't. He's dragging his career down with this thing. He's the one that gives the best performance, mostly just because he has natural charisma. And it's almost like he knows just how bad this is, and he wants to have fun with it, but they just won't let him. And then there's the parents, one of them voiced by Stephen Wright, and he is so bad in this. I mean, I know his voice is bland and unexpressive anyways, but it's like all what little emotion he had is just drained out. He sounds actually clinically depressed, not just meh. So let's get the big thing out of the way. This movie is a huge ripoff. Of what? Many people say the Lego Movie. Many people say Inside Out. Many people say Wreck-It Ralph. I say it's all three of them! See, here's the thing. It's a story about game/technology characters that just jump around into other worlds. And by the way, these other worlds are not things like Hero's Duty or Sugar Rush. These are real things like Spotify or Facebook. Oh, the Facebook one. The Facebook one got me so mad. When I watched that, I turned to my friend and said, they stole this from South Park. You know the episode, You Have Zero Friends? The one where Stan goes inside of Facebook and then he sees all those personalized profile people, that scene? They lift that into this movie and they just steal it outright. They change a couple pieces of dialogue here and there, but it's basically the same. They steal something from South Park. Speaking of South Park had better get off that hiatus right now and start the 21st season with a ripoff or attack at this movie. Because whatever this is, they have to attack it. They have to do it now while it's still relevant. And especially acknowledge that they stole some of their jokes. Yeah, I said some of them. There's more. So back to the whole ripoff thing. It's about those technology characters jumping around, going into different worlds that are all terrible product placements, but that's a topic for later. One of them turns out to be a princess. There's the evil authority figure who turns out to be a bad person. And it's all about coming to terms with who you really are. That's the Wreck-It Ralph part. The Inside Out part, so there's this kid out in the real world named Alex, who's basically the Riley, and he goes through similar things. And basically he just gets more and more detached from whatever's inside. Inside Out, it's the emotions, and in the Emoji movie, it's those demons. And then he gets close to getting rid of them, and then he has to repent last minute, just like Riley did. And by the way, deleting a phone does not work like that. You don't take it to a store. You don't just plug it in and then it slowly deletes itself in like this crumbling thing. No, you go over to your settings, you push the factory reset button, and boop, it's gone. That's what you have to do, kid. You don't have to pay like $100 to go to the Apple store to do that, unless you're some like rich Connecticut person who really, I don't know where I'm going with this. And also the plot structure is just like Inside Out. It's about two things. Because the jailbreak, that's a dumb name. Emoji is not from the Textopolis. So it's about two things used to express emotions getting kicked out of the place they're supposed to be in, going around all over this body area, exploring many different worlds that are adapted from everyday things. Ultimately, the person on the outside is getting extremely detached and is about to do something they would extremely regret, while ultimately cutting off the emotion expressing things by having everything get dark and depressing and non-functional. All the while, the emotion things come back and then save the day with the power of their emotions. Yeah, it's basically the same thing, but where does the Lego movie fit in? Well, when the Lego movie came out, everyone thought it was going to be like what everyone thinks the Emoji movie is going to be now, and it's actually worse. But the Lego movie was really good, and it surprised everyone. Why? Because it had a very unique and very well thought out style of humor. We hadn't seen anything like this in a long time. It was something like almost that The Simpsons would come up, or Rick and Morty in a sense. And then here's this movie trying to come along thinking, oh, we can do that too! But they can't. They really can't. They have no idea what they're doing. They try to take all these things like Spotify and YouTube and turn them into their own worlds, and it's just so bad, and it's so pandering. It's obvious whoever wrote this had no idea, repeat, no idea of what they were doing, and had no idea what makes these things so popular. There's the YouTube thing where there's the cat videos. Okay, that's a typical shot. Everyone's made those shots. Then there's also that apple, pen, pint, whatever thing, and they just focus on that for 30 seconds, and they just let it play with the occasional comment in the background. There's that, and then they go on to Spotify, and then there's that thing where they talk about Dropbox, and then it's an actual plot point, and it's a plot point that it's super virus protective and it keeps your valuables safe. Yeah, if that's not a product placement, I don't know what is. Then there's that Candy Crush thing, which is just as dumb as it looks like in the trailer. Oh, speaking of the trailer real quick, you know all those disgusting scenes that they show in, both disgusting as in a gross sense and as in an insult to your taste, where the things like where the hand spits up the candy corn and where the phone goes off in class, those either don't happen or they happen in an entirely different spot. Don't trust the trailer. It changes so much from the movie itself. The trailer is a liar! The movie really tries to do something like what the Lego movie did. Like where the Lego movie, they go into all these different worlds and they create their own worlds with a bunch of jokes that only Lego fans would get. This is just the most stupid, superficial, obvious jokes you could make. It's like, oh, here's an emoji and it says the thing that it's supposed to do. It's making the face that it's supposed to. It's joke. Laugh at joke. Do laugh at joke. We funny. We very funny. Basically, half the jokes in the first half of the movie amount to, oh, you know that emoji you recognize? Well, here it is, walking around. Isn't that funny? They don't even make jokes. And when they do make jokes, they explain the jokes. They'll say things like, the crying emoji always has to cry, even if he just won the lottery. I just won the lottery. And then the laughing emoji has to laugh at all times, even though he just broke his arm. I just broke my arm. That's not just explaining the joke, that's double explaining the joke. You explained it the first time, then you explained it the second time while it's happening. You're not making anyone laugh. We, for some reason, went to a sold-out show. That's really sad, and it shows a really sad state that our country is in, that the Emoji movie can get sold out. And is actually beating out Spider-Man Homecoming, which is an actually good movie. But all the kids in there were so bored. Even they knew that this humor was desperate and sad. So that was the first half, but what about the second half? The second half tries to take itself really seriously. Like, out of nowhere, the parent met emojis decide to split up, and not like split up as in like searching in separate ways for their son, which is what it's kind of is, but then out of nowhere they just jump into let's get a divorce, basically. They don't say those words, but it just comes out of nowhere. And I don't get it. Sure, the dad was a little rough, but that's because he's having a hard time, more or less. And then it turns out he's also a malfunction, and that comes out of nowhere. He's just like, oh yeah, I've just been masking my emotions. Well, then why can't the stupid Gene character do that? Speaking of okay, no, that's the ending. I don't want to get there quite yet. The villain is so weak and forgettable. It's that smiler emoji, which I guess is the smiling one, but I don't know. She's so weak. She's barely in the movie. Her defeat comes out of nowhere. The whole climax is just rushed, really. They try to force in a lot of emotion. With the emojis, with the dad and mom reuniting, and then the dad standing up for the son, and then this big action scene, but it all happens in the span of 2 minutes. There's too much in there, all crammed in, and we get no time to absorb any of it, but it's not like it would do anything, because we don't care. We don't care. These characters are the most bland and flat I have seen in a long time. The Gene character, what's his personality? Tell me, really, what's his personality? Oh, he makes many faces. That's not a personality. That's an ability. It's a power. It's like saying Superman's personality is that he can fly. That's not a personality at all. He is nothing. There's nothing to him. He has no personality. Yeah, he's quirky and weird, but that's everybody in this movie. Everybody's quirky and weird. He doesn't stand out. He's not special. The Hand, his typical personality is just that he's a dunce. That's it. He's just stupid. The Jailbreak one is basically Wild Style from the Lego Movie mixed with Vanellope from Wreck-It Ralph. I mean it. Everyone points to her looking just like Wild Style. She does. She really does. And she acts just like her too, and even sounds like her. The voice actress is doing an impression of her, and she's the worst actress in the movie. Right from when she first started talking, we in the theater, the three of us that were there, were just talking about how terrible of a voice she had. It just sounds kind of weak and flat, like she's just reading the lines for the first or second time. It is not convincing in the slightest. Then when she turns out to be a princess, they act like it's a big twist, but here's the thing, they tell you! In the first, 5-10 minutes of the movie, they tell you about this. And then she calls on the Twitter bird to say them. It's a Deus Ex Machina. It's really stupid. And when they said oh, princesses can whistle and then birds will appear, I said, if they somehow incorporate that into the Twitter bird, I will scream. And then when the Twitter bird came up, I could see both out of the corner of my eye. Both my friends were looking at me. I buried my hands in my head in my hands and just went, and I got a couple people looking at me, but it was worth it, because that was so dumb, so stupid. Stop trying to be hip and cool. You're not good at it. You're really not good at it. You're about as cool as some middle-aged guy from a senior center coming out saying, I'm hip with the kids. You know, it reminds me of that episode of The Simpsons that I just talked about recently, Lisa versus Malibu Stacy. You remember that subplot where Grandpa tries to get into modern society by getting a job and fitting in? And you know how he just did a terrible job at it because he's from a different generation and has no idea what people in this generation are interested in? Take that, multiply it by 100, and then mix it with a phone, and then you got the Emoji Movie. This thing has no idea what its source material is, but it's not like an Emoji movie could be good anyways. Nobody asked for this. Nobody wanted this. Nobody cares about it. Even kids that like emojis, they don't care. At work, I work with a bunch of kids because, I work at a theater area. In the same place that did Willy Wonka, Drowsy Chaperone, Avenue Q, but that stuff. There was this girl that loved emoji stuff. Always wore an emoji shirt. Always wore like that kind of stuff. All emoji merchandise. I told her about this. She had no idea it existed. She looked it up, and then the next day I asked her if she wanted to say it. She said it looked terrible. If an emoji fan, a huge fan, could say that, you are failing, because ultimately you think you get it. You think you get it. You think you're the Lego Movie, but you're not the Lego Movie. The Lego Movie is funny. The Lego Movie has good timing. You are rushed at the worst of times, and then when you feel like you really have a good joke, you just slow everything down and drag the joke out. All the jokes that could have been good, are terrible. The only joke, the one joke I smiled at, just a little smirk, was that the emoticons are the old emojis. Like that was kind of clever, but you did nothing with it. And then you proceeded to explain the joke and then stomp on all comedic possibilities that it had. Other than that, it's just a barren wasteland of comedy. It doesn't get it. It really doesn't get what made the Lego Movie so well done. Here's the thing. Creativity and giving a crap. That's what makes it good. It tried. It knew that Lego was extremely popular, and it knew that it had a lot to go off of. So it did. It ran with it. And even with all the stuff that they couldn't fit in, they are probably saving that for the other movies, because they are trying hard. They really know what they've got. And even though they're starting to get out a bunch of rushed movies that I'm starting to get a little concerned over, they're still trying, no matter what. They're still trying. This isn't trying. It's really not. And if it is, it doesn't look like it. This is just a soulless cash grab. That's what it is. Why do I hate this movie so much? It's not because the movie itself is terrible, although it is. It is a terrible movie. One of my bottom 5 easily. Worse than something like Norm of the North. But what ultimately gets me about this movie is that, I myself am a writer. I'm working on an animated pilot right now with some people, as I've mentioned many times. This is insulting to anyone in their creative field like that. Because when you write an actual script and you have faith in it, you work hard. You make sure it does well. You care about it. You build it up. It's basically your kid. So when that kind of stuff comes out, and then you see this soulless, meaningless, ignorant movie that has no idea about anything. If it was a human, I don't even think it'd know how to walk. It's just that broken and that pointless. And then seeing that beat out movies that actually tried, and then this, despite its 6%, and despite its 9 on Metacritic, and all that kind of stuff, and its 1.5 on IMDb, people still make this the number 2 movie at the box office since its opening day, and it's making its budget back, meaning that there's going to be more of this, and it's going to show Hollywood that we want more movies like this, and not movies like Spider-Man Homecoming that actually think through their stories and really try to make an effort and to please people. Or even other movies that could be coming out really soon, like the Captain Underpants movie. That's another thing of don't judge a book by its cover. I saw that recently and I really liked it. And I wasn't the biggest fan of Captain Underpants as a kid. I mean, I liked the books alright, but that had a lot of jokes for adults, and it was really engaging. It had really good and spontaneous animation. The acting was really well done, and then the people behind it clearly had a passion for this. The passion showed in the movie because the movie was well done. Sure, it kind of changed tone a little bit midway through, but that's because they were combining the first and the fourth books. This has no excuse. It changes tone every 10 minutes. First it wants to be stupid and weird, then it wants to be kind of dark and sinister, then it wants to be brooding and dark, and then it wants to be stupid all over again. It insults me more as a creator than it does as a film viewer. Because that's basically what I do on this channel. I make stuff, I write stuff, and then I perform stuff with some people. That's what I've been doing for like 3 years. And ultimately, I try on every single thing I write. I'm a very, very big perfectionist, and I'm not the most popular channel out there, I will admit that, and I'm fine with that, but I still have a loyal fan base that I'm still very thankful for, and they like my stuff and I'm happy. But then there's stuff like this that'll just like, it doesn't try and then it gets so much money. Sure, it has no fans, but it just, it's sad. It really shows that this is bad direction we're going in. And that if it can continue to rip off stuff like this, imagine what the Emoji sequel would be. Or that that meme going around, the fidget spinner movie. I wouldn't be surprised, actually, if they did something like that, because they're just that desperate now. Sony Pictures hasn't made one movie I like, with the exception of, like, Cloud with a Chance of Meatballs 1, which I thought it was decent. I thought it was pretty good. But I wouldn't say, like, I really liked it. Other than that, they haven't made a single good movie in my eyes. Okay, well, to be honest, Hotel Transylvania was decent. The first one, I haven't seen the second one, but especially lately, they've been doing so badly. And having to rely on a bunch of other tropes and stuff. Oh, I remember more stuff that they ripped off from the Lego movie. So, you know the micromanagers, those things? They straight up lift them into this movie. All they do is they turn them upside down, and then that's it. And then they call them bots. First of all, that's not a creative name. And then two, so dumb. And then they also have this dance thing in there called the Emoji Pop. You can tell they're trying to make that the next Everything is Awesome, but it's not gonna be. And if it is, it's gonna be ironic, as in, like, everyone hates it. Also, the character Alex is extremely weak and stupid, and the reason he saves the phone is so dumb. It messed up a whole bunch. Yeah, why not just reset it? You have to just try soft resetting it first. And then because it sends one emoji that does a really weird thing, like switching through a bunch of random emotions, he decides to keep it. Speaking of which, that's Gene's job at the end. He decides he wants to be the changing emoji. First of all, what's the practical use of that? Why even bother? Two, this is the thing that's a problem throughout the whole movie. You know, teens and kids don't really use emojis that much, especially not these days anymore, right? Emojis were kind of a big thing a couple of years ago. I mean, they'll still use them now, but not very much, and that's not all they will send. 3, what happened to the meh emoji? Is the dad gonna keep doing it? Is the dad gonna be a cycling one too? Or is every emoji just allowed to be a different thing? Oh, that reminds me, this movie's communist propaganda. Now, this is definitely a real theory and not just a joke/conspiracy theory that we came up with just to amuse ourselves in the theater while we were bored out of our minds and wanting to be hit by a semi-truck. So in the movie, the Smiler dictator says that everyone has to fit exactly into their designated social class, and everyone has to be exactly even, except for those who are elevated, being like the party officials. And those who dare to defy the status social quo are eliminated in front of everyone to set an example. And everyone's supposed to be on an equal level, except not actually, because there still are people in charge and still people that are supreme leaders. But even still, everyone gets their equal share. So then it turns out that Gene liberates everyone from that, and then everyone really does get to be equal, and everyone gets to be free and happy. See, that's kind of like an anti-communist thing, but remember the old saying, a bad argument for something is the best argument against something. So it's almost like an anti-communist thing, but when you look at just how bad the argument is, it's pro-communist, and it makes more sense because remember in 2014, when The Interview was coming out, North Korea hacked Sony. North Korea's communist. So maybe they instilled their communist beliefs into Sony. Sony is communist, and they're trying to make us all communists with the Emoji Movie. It makes so much sense now, doesn't it, guys? I mean, think about it. The Emoji Movie is communist propaganda. Spread the word. But really, don't go see it. If you're going for the meme, if you're going to just have fun, do not. You will neither laugh nor cry. Well, you might cry, actually. But I'm going to leave you today with what I wrote on my Instagram page, because I think that summarized everything. I wrote, I was warned, and I did not listen. The Emoji Movie is not so bad it's good. It is so bad that it's one of the worst things I've ever seen. If I had $1 for every time me or one of my friends said something like, I wish I was dead, or I'd rather drink a bucket of paint than watch this, I could have rented out the whole theater. But I wouldn't, because this was absolutely atrocious. All throughout, I just wanted to leave, but I'm too much of a cheapskate to walk out. As a writer, I'm insulted that something so lazy and detached from both the source material and good humor / common sense could be right behind something like Dunkirk. Do not see it. You will neither laugh nor cry. Well, maybe you might cry out of pain. There's only one thing I can quote-unquote say to summarize this movie, and then it's the barf emoji. That fits. This movie is terrible. It's an abomination, and it especially hurts if you're someone on the creative side, like a writer. If your kids go to see this, I say no. Not only will you be miserable, but they will be miserable too. Not a single laugh was heard throughout, and so many people were just so bored throughout the whole thing. But they just wouldn't leave. They wouldn't walk out because, over in our area, they don't walk out very much. But still, this was awful. And the Patrick Stewart thing was just a waste. He had like 6 lines, maybe. And there's a bunch of other little things too, like how does the finger destroy everything when like a single ounce emoji lands on it and then just destroys everything? What are the personalities of some emojis, like the flag emojis? Are they just like Israeli or Mexican stereotypes? Why is the eggplant emoji not used? Is it because he is so young? How do emojis procreate? Are there multiple versions of one, or do they have to conform to the other in order to reproduce? Can emojis actually die? How did the hand get the bandage? Smiler says she's the original emoji, but how did that come to be? How did they get created? How did they replace emoticons? Did that Just Dance girl actually die? Because that was depressing if so. Has there ever been a Gone Turbo situation in this movie? How come some emojis have real names like Mel or Jean, and then some of them are just named after what they are? And why did Patrick Stewart even agree to do this? This movie fills my head with so many questions, so many bad, angry thoughts. When I got home, I just watched Wreck-It Ralph to feel good about myself again, because they're basically the same movie, just Wreck-It Ralph is way, way, way better. I would say it's a million times better, but a million times 0 is still 0. So folks, don't see this movie. Please don't. If you did, how many therapy sessions did you have to go to? How many doctor's appointments? How many surgeries did you have to go through after seeing it? So folks, this is just a bit of a deviation from our regularly scheduled program, but I just had to get it out. Like that Modern Family episode, all things being equal, I just had to explode and dump my anger onto this. Don't see it. Oh, please don't see it. Don't see it. Just don't.